And I didn't seek that job, but I did take it. And so I had this one student that said, I want to go to college, but my mother, single mom, doesn't have any money. And I said, well, then go to college. You can go, Christina, if you want. And she said, I can't. How do I go? Oh, well, your grades are fairly decent. She was like a B.A. student. And she said, my mother said that without money I can't go. And I said, well, she's right, but she doesn't owe you that. There's ways for you to go. And she learned that there's financial aid, and she learned that there's federal grants. And because she didn't have that 3.5, she wasn't a shoo-in for a scholarship of a certain level. But there's so much money out there for these guys. They just have to want to get it. And so I introduce this part through that. But in going and in working, 2 of my brothers drove the school bus. You would never know of today a high school student driving a school bus. But back then, they did allow that. So Ramiro and Juan drove a school bus. And you drove a school bus? And I remember that we'd park it outside the house, and I wanted to buy an annual, but we didn't have any money. And so I asked Juan and Ramiro, if I sweep your bus every day, at the end of the week, will you give me a quarter? And so they said, okay. That's how I got $10 to buy the school annual, which I don't have any idea what it would be right now. But I wanted that annual like everybody else had, and I didn't have the opportunity to get it, but I got it that way. But I have something I want to read to you that I ran across about how we look at people who drive a school bus. And it is quite appropriate in how we see that even school bus drivers are contributors to how they treat people. And it starts off like this. What is it you do? I asked the man as we sat together that day. You could tell from the way his face lit up, he was going to enjoy what he had to say. I transport treasures, he said with a smile, their value you cannot measure. Once in the morning, once in the eve, I transport these precious, priceless treasures. My goodness, how important, I said as I turned to him. You must be quite a person to be entrusted with such a gem. From one safe spot to another, I carry my cargo day after day, and you could see what joy it brings as I carry them on their way. Each treasure's unique, no two alike, each radiant in some unique, special way. Some stand out, some more subdued, but each needing some care today. My treasures are all different colors. No two are alike, you see. Some are large and some are small, each one with a mystery. I don't carry a gun, and there's not a guard as I transport year after year. I've never lost a single one, although I always have that fear. I take it very seriously. It's too important to see. There are so many people out there who really are depending on me. Well, by now I couldn't imagine a more important task. Is it gold? Is it silver? What other jewels? I had to ask. None of these, he said with a smile. It's boys and girls. For me, they are the treasures and transport America's future, you see. I have a very important job, valued by each of us, for I'm proud to say, with a world of pride, I drive a yellow school bus. So even that is important. And we don't think, and then I thought, God, Amita's job and JC's job and my father's job and Juan's job, God, they're really kind of cool, even though I swept their bus for 25 cents for the whole week for both of them. So now, as I go into some things I want to share with you, and in my own education, I did graduate from Pan American. And then my mother got very ill and ended up in MD Anderson. And so then I stayed on after her passing, and then I got a job with one of his companies that was in downtown Houston off of Westheimer. And I decided to stay on in the Houston area instead of going back home in a way to get over not only my mother's death, but a guy that I had been dating that I wanted nothing else to do with. So it was a really good time, plus I had a job. So I decided at that point, I enrolled at the University of Houston and I got my master's, proceeded on, got married, taught a special ed class of life skills students, and during that particular year, which was 1988, I was awarded Teacher of the Year for the state of Texas, which was a really sweet thing. And through that, I got a Fulbright Scholarship to University of Texas in Austin for a PhD, which is how that came about. Well, my stubborn streak was to say, gosh, you know, that's a lot of time for my family, but my other part says I can do it because I have a choice. and I know I can do it, and nobody is better than I am in regards to getting this highest degree that's possible. So I went with the support of my husband, and I was there for a year, and then I did everything else I came back home, and I did everything else going back and forth for classes until it was actually done 5 years later. And in all of that, I also wanted to share that my brother Ramiro has his PhD, and my sister Silvia has her PhD out of the 7. And I remember when Ramiro got his from the University of Michigan, my mother was still alive. And he was about to defend his dissertation, and she was praying by the phone, which was the only phone you had, would have that long extension cord that could go to every single room in the house. And she was there with her Rosario, just praying and praying and praying, because he was going to defend, and this was going to tell whether he was done or not. She gets the phone call, and she is just so excited that her son, that picked cotton, is now a doctor. That's a big deal. And he was in his late 20s at that time. Then later on, my sister as well did, and then I had the opportunity, and I went. But I'll tell you, the one who is the brightest is Abel, Abelito we call him. And he is this magical individual that has taught me more than any book. And I would love to share him with you. And I wish he was here, and maybe another time he can. But this is who Abelito is now. He is 52 years old, and he is the most humble, loving angel. And it's like I have this angel in my house every single day. And he doesn't see color. He doesn't see fat. He doesn't see skinny, even though he always says that I am fat. He always says I'm fat. Yeah. Because my bowl of popcorn is 3 times bigger than his little bowl of ice cream. And so he judges by that. And so he'll always say, "You fat, Dodie, you had to go jogging." But what he has taught me is not to look at anybody being better than, that I'm not better than someone else, but nobody's better than me. And my father used to say that. And first time that we graduated from Pan American, he said, of course, he said, "Hi, Mijita, I'm so proud of you. And, nobody can take this paper away. Now if you want to get married and have children, it's okay, because you always have this little piece of paper that nobody can take away from you." And he would just encourage us without a doubt. And he said, "Now remember, this paper doesn't make you better than anybody else, but nobody else is better than you." And so he would encourage us that we were worthy of this. And I remember when Joe called me and said, "Would you like to speak to this?" And I thought, I'm worthy of this. I can share something of this. And I went to my PowerPoint presentations that I've done before, and I thought, well, on one hand, it's kind of dry, to be honest with you, because they're numbers and statistics. So I thought, maybe another time, but not this time. This time it was going to be right from the heart. And that's why I wanted to bring these 2 people here, because they were the most instrumental things for me. What I want to do with my life, because that's part of a question that I had written out as an outline, is that I want to do what you guys are doing. And I want to make this grow, because there's still adversities in school. And I remember being punished in elementary for speaking Spanish. I remember that. I was out in the playground, and some little kid went and told Mrs. Florence that Hilda was speaking Spanish, and she put me out in the hall. I was so embarrassed, and I remember going home, and I told my mother, "Ay, mamá, me castigaron en la escuela." And she just said, "Oh, don't do it again, don't do it again." And not to get in trouble, but that was my language. And I was punished for that. And never again did I speak Spanish in school, at least that year, until I learned that it was definitely okay. And adversities, of course there are. We did not know how to swim. We did not have a bathing suit. But one Saturday, my father took all of us to a little swimming pool. But we went in shorts.